Hey Bee Gees fans, David Fedor with Bee Gees and me here. Today we're talking about To Love the Bee Gees, a tribute to the Brothers Gibb. This CD compilation was put out a few years ago by 80 Proof Media, and today we're going to talk with Todd Bisson. He's the owner of that record company and also the lead project producer for this album. This is his baby, his passion project. He spent 4 years of his life putting this tribute album together, and we're going to talk with him about his experience and his love of the Bee Gees. But first, let's take a look at this physical album. Alright, so let's take a look at To Love the Bee Gees, a tribute to the Brothers Gibb. Cool retro looking packaging. Has some simulated wear around the outside to make it look like it's a vinyl record. Very cool looking. On the back, it has a list of the songs and the artists. We'll go into more detail with the songs and the artists with Todd later on. We're going to open this bad boy up. And again, the same retro looking art with some cool colors and a heart with Bee Gees written in it. We'll have to ask Todd who drew that. It's actually probably on here somewhere, cover design. And then this opens up again to reveal a second CD and some liner notes. So these fan notes, it's called A Fan's Notes, and it's written by David Wild, who's an Emmy-nominated television writer, a best-selling author, and a contributing editor for Rolling Stone. It's very long, but it says here, it starts, "To love the Bee Gees is to adore harmony. To love the Bee Gees is to embrace melody. To love the Bee Gees is to engage fully with a wide range of emotions." And us Bee Gees fans know that that's what it's about. It's about the harmony, the music, the melodies, the emotions, all their great songs. So this David Wild definitely knows his Bee Gees. We'll take a look at the CD itself. Very cool. More groovy sounds from 80 Proof Media. It says at the top, To Love the Bee Gees, a tribute to the Brothers Gibb. And that's disc 1. That has the songs on here that are listed on the back. But this is the deluxe edition because, of course, I had to buy the deluxe edition. Comes with a second CD full of alternate cuts from the artists that appear on the first CD, and it also comes with a couple extra bonus songs that aren't on the first CD. This is the deluxe edition bonus disc. Comes with Melody Fair, which wasn't on the first CD. It comes with a French version of I Can Bring Love, which might be my favorite track on this whole entire collection. And it also comes with Night Fever. Night Fever wasn't on the first album either. But that's cool. You could see it has the track listing listed on the CD, and that slides in there. On the inside of the middle, we see this poster, and it opens up. I love the Bee Gees. So you can see how cool that looks. On the back, it goes through each song and says a little bio and says a little bit of information about each of the songs. And then it has messages from the executive producer with some special thanks and things like that here. That level of detail and that level of care is awesome, and I can't wait to talk with Todd about it. Yeah. Very, very sharp looking CD physically to hold in your hands. It has this very thick cardboard case, which is pretty great. So there you have a look at this CD, the actual physical copy. Let's get to our conversation with Todd. All right, welcome back. We are here with Todd Bisson, the owner of 80 Proof Media and the man behind the passion project that is To Love the Bee Gees. a tribute to the Brothers Gibb. Todd, welcome to Bee Gees and Me.
Hey, thanks very much. It's cool that you're doing a podcast that's your own personal journey through the history and current life of the band, such as it is these days. That's really neat because one thing I've learned throughout the course of this project is that Bee Gees fans are really the ones who are fans are just devoted and remain so. And you seem like a young guy. I'm going to guess you weren't around when the Bee Gees made their hits or most of their hits. So it's cool that you're a young guy who likes the band as much as you do.
Yeah, thank you. That's part of the reason why that I'm, reaching out to people now. When I discovered them, it was the 1990s. They were non-existent in the States, basically,
Yeah.
and I happened to hear them on a whim on a top 40 radio station in Pittsburgh, PA, and I was the only one that I knew who liked the Bee Gees, let alone had even heard of them. I was a teenage kid with, cassette tapes handing out to my friends, being like, "You got to listen to these guys. You have to listen." Blah blah blah. For the longest time, it was just the Bee Gees and me. So that's kind of where this Bee Gees and me thing came up. I don't know why it took me until the year 2020 to start reaching out to people online. The internet's been around for a long time now, but better late than never, right?
Sure, and that's the beauty of the interconnectedness that exists and the easy tools for creating something like this is whenever you want to get around to it, it's there for you.
Yeah. And I was waiting to see what adjective you were going to drop when you said Bee Gees fans are, and I was like dot dot dot. Oh, what's he going to say? Because yeah, we're a passionate bunch. I'll
Yep.
say we because I of course am including myself in that. And getting the chance to talk about the music or talk about the collectibles and things like that is something that I'm really excited about. And so your tribute album here is filled with some of the most unique covers of some of the Bee Gees songs that I'm sure this passionate fan base has given you lots of different reactions to.
Oh yeah, I got a lot of reactions throughout the project, and not just once it was released, but during the creation of it from fans because it was kind of a unique gestation period. I involved the Bee Gees fan community very early on in the project through social media, principally Facebook, but also on Twitter. And over the course of the project, evolved. I think it's got about 12,000 followers on Facebook, and so not only did I get reactions after the record was released, but I had reactions while I was making it because I was not just talking about it, but I was putting out songs for people to hear. I was, trying to explain the scope of it, my
Mhm.
my particular perspective on the tribute album concept and what I wanted to do with this release. And there were some people who were like, well, why can't you just call up the Pet Shop Boys and have them? They'd be great on this. Yes, that's true. And and I actually found an email address for a manager in the UK, and I sent an email, maybe a couple of emails, never got a response because somebody actually brought that up, and I said, well, at the very least, I'm going to, be able to say I did reach out to them.
I
Um,
tried, yeah.
there are people who, because when the original way I thought the project was going to work was that I was going to fund out of my pocket a certain number of recordings, and then I would go to Kickstarter and raise the rest of the money to finish out the record to whatever extent I could, based on the money that I raised. I can't remember what my original funding goal was. It might have been like $50,000. Not a lot of money, but
Not for a tribute album on that scope, right?
yeah, but not even close to enough money for a tribute album of that scope. And I thought if we raise a lot of money, if it really takes off, and there's a lot of attention, and it gets that kind of zeitgeisty, hits the right spot. And some records that were being funded at the same time that I was trying to do the Bee Gees project to love the Bee Gees, there was projects for that were to record albums that were raising hundreds of thousands of dollars, and so and there were projects that also raised a few $1,000s, and that was it. I did not hit my funding goal. If you know how um, Kickstarter works, you don't get any money if you don't reach your fundraising goal. Some other uh, similar sites, whatever you raise, you get. That was not the case with mine. I didn't reach my goal. We had about a month, maybe 6 weeks to reach it. I think we reached about half of that amount and never got that money. All that money was returned to the people who contributed it. And we had to figure out, I had to figure out what was going to be the way to finish this project. I thought it might be, it was going to be just an EP. I had, I think, 4 songs done at that point, and some really nice ones. Isobel Campbell was the first recording that was done, and anyway, I thought, okay, it'll just be an EP to be kind of a bummer. Maybe it'll only come out digitally. And then I just decided that I was going to spend the money out of my pocket to really finish it exactly the way I wanted it, at least on a certain level. And if I lost a bunch of money doing it, so be it. And when you make physical music in this day and age, losing money is just kind of part of the equation.
Right.
People just don't buy CDs and vinyl to a certain extent now the way they used to. And so when you want to make physical things to sell to people, you're the chances of you making money are very small. And in fact, I did not do very well on it commercially. But from a standpoint of did I do something that I'm proud of? I did, and I was to this day. I rue spending that much money, but I'm at least happy that it came out, and I didn't cut any corners, at least the way I envisioned it, and I'm really happy with it to this day.
Well, it is an amazing collection, and the viewers who are watching right now on YouTube have seen the physical discs, and I have the deluxe edition with the bonus disc
Mhm.
and the poster inside, and you could tell. And I've had cheap quality CDs in the past and cheap quality
Mhm.
uh, physical
Oh
cases.
yeah,
This is definitely not. So, as a BG fan, thank you for putting all that effort and that love into it, because it definitely shows. And I'm with you. I'm old school. I uh, loved thumbing through records at flea
hmm
markets and buying Bee Gees records and playing them on a turntable, and having the physical collection, because there are even just straight up Bee Gees albums themselves, the Gibbs themselves, some of their songs aren't available to stream.
oh yeah,
And that's, to me, in 2021, if you're signed with Capitol Records or something like that, your entire catalog needs to be accessible. And that's one of those things that's like, thank God I bought all of those collections and I have those bookshelves, kind of like yours in the back, so, a physical disc that we
yeah,
could still play, that they can't take away from us just by turning off a stream. So
yeah. I
um,
started out as a Bee Gees fan when they were at the top of their game in the late 70s, when you could buy 7 inches and you could buy the vinyl. And before, certainly, there were CDs, but there was cassettes as well. And I used to have my BG 7 inches right next to my Beatles 7 inches because they went together. And the Beach Boys, Bee Gees, Beatles, those three together
alphabetically, or just
alphabetically.
okay?
I mean, they
Because
really
I
do
always
work.
see,
It goes Beach Boys first, Beatles second, and Bee Gees third. And there's really
yeah,
not a lot of bands that were kind of could muscle
Jeff
their
Beck.
way.
Jeff Beck is the only one I ever see on store shelves as I'm
That's
thumbing through. It's like, all right, Jeff Beck, get out of
yeah.
here. Let's put
And
Bee
there are
Gees
others,
up front.
I'm sure there are tons of others. If we went through the alphabet of the world, but when in my collection, and I was not, one of those people that had thousands of pieces of vinyl when I was a kid. I had a few dozen, maybe 50 or 100 total. I don't remember. Then it was definitely those three right together, and I love that.
Yeah.
And so that was those sort of became my three touchstones that remain to a certain extent the same touchstones to this day, but that through the move to CD, I actually kind of discovered a different perspective on the Bee Gees, because that was when the second wind to my fandom and the really depth of my fandom began. And it really began with the Odessa three CD box set that came out on Rhino, I believe. Pretty sure it was Rhino. And it was a
Yeah, that was one of those reissues where they had all the
tons of
yeah.
extras, came in a really great package. I was a
Mhm.
big fan of box sets, CD box sets, and all the extra tracks and that sort of thing. And I'm thinking the Bee Gees had a concept album that had all this extra material that you could think of in the same way you thought of Pet Sounds or some of these other things. And to a lot of people, Odessa is their creative peak. And I don't feel the same, but that is a very special record in their catalog. It's the record that
Mhm.
broke them up. The first, when they broke up during the release of the Odessa album, and it was
Yeah, first of May and Lamplight. First of
yeah,
May Lamplight. It's
exactly,
gonna go.
exactly, and that was one of those things you learn as you start really digging into the band, and I love that. And then there was a series of releases that came out in two CD form, the early stuff that came with the Warner Brothers controls, which they've done.
Mhm.
They did everything you could ask any record company to do with the Bee Gees. They put out these lovingly created two CD sets with all sorts of extra material, and the Bee Gees are just one of those bands with endless amounts of music, and you got a good sense of that from those records. And I really dove into those, and I found a particular song that just blew me away. And it really was the thing that made me decide there needed to be a really great Bee Gees tribute album. Oh, you read that? Okay,
And
there you go.
and you allude to it in the liner notes.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that I wanted to talk with you about because that's kind of one of those wake up moments, those aha moments, the things that you hear that sets you on the path, kind of like I experienced when I heard them in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
You heard
Kilburn,
Kilburn Towers.
Kilburn Towers. Yeah. And the project was
Uh,
Kilburn Towers project for a while. That was sort of
that was the working title.
yeah, the working. Well, it was just sort of a placeholder because it wasn't going to be called that. It's going to be called something else. But because I really felt okay. This is such an incredible song. It's a very modest song if you consider their oeuvre in some, but it's so breezy. It's that perfect Barry pop Bacharach, 60s feel to it that just I listened to it over and over and over again for like maybe a week. And I talked to a friend of mine, a manager I've done many projects with, a guy named Bennett Freed, who's really the other key part of this. And he said, "Oh, I used to run their fan club." And it blew me away because I said, I was in that fan club. So he was running, he's about 10 years older than me. And so he was running that fan club when I was a teenager. And he, as a kid, was just hanging out in the office while his dad was working. And there was a meeting going on with the Bee Gees, and they needed somebody to run the fan club. And he said, "Oh, I'll run it." And so, as his first job in the music business, he's running their fan club at the height of Saturday Night Fever, and the two albums that came after that that really sort of are the ultimate commercial peak of the band. Spirits
Yeah.
Haven't Flown, and that era, he was there running their fan club, and that blew my mind. So we decided that we were going to just listen to each of the
And
Bee Gees. Go ahead.
and he was your friend that you had no clue that he had this experience. How long had you known him there? Like years? Like
About a decade, yeah, about a decade.
wow. Okay.
We became friends. 10 years later, he tells me this story about being a huge Bee Gees fan. We decided to explore their entire catalog together, and as we're doing that, I say we have to do a Bee Gees tribute record. I want to do it. I'll spend the money. I want you to be a part of it. And the great thing about having somebody like Bennett involved was he still had contacts with the Bee Gees team. He was still in touch with a gentleman whose name I've forgotten, who essentially is Barry Gibb's main man. And the band really didn't have management at that time. So this guy was kind of like their manager. And he got in touch with him and said, "Hey, we're thinking about doing this." Uh,
Is it Dick Ashby? Dick Ashby, maybe?
Dick Ashby is the guy. He is the guy. Dick Ashby lives in Florida, along with Barry and then Robin. because at that point Robin was still alive, and he gave it his blessing and said, go for it. We were thinking of ways to involve Barry and Robin at that point, but there really was, be involved in your own tribute album. Some people do it, most people don't. Somebody like Barry, I wouldn't even, or Barry and Robin. I keep saying just Barry because now I think of the Bee Gees as just Barry because he's the last Gibb standing. But at the time, Robin was still alive and still very active in terms of, I think at that point, he had just released the Titanic project. And so anyway, we started to theorize how to do it, and then Robin died, and that just there's just no way we can do something like this right now. It's too painful a time, and you don't want to be thought of as trying to take advantage of something like that.
Right.
So the project was put aside for more than a year, and then I came back to it, and I just decided, I called up Bennett and said, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to try to do this now. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to some friends of mine who are musicians, because I've worked in the music business for a very long time as a mainly as a radio promotion guy, and I still kept in touch with a number of people that I've known over the years who are really talented musicians. And the first person I talked to was Martin Carr, and I called him up and I said, I want to pay you to make a Bee Gees song for me as a calling card for this project. And he said yes. I paid him. I paid him for it. I paid him a fairly significant amount of money. He thought it was fairly significant. He was willing to do it for free. And
Oh, wow.
and I said, no, no, no. There's nobody.
He told you that after he took the money, right?
Yeah, there's nobody in this record who did anything for free. Artists should get paid for their art. I'm a firm
Yeah.
believer in that. And so he,
No, no exposure. No exposure.
yeah, none of that sort of, hey, it's just a good thing for you to be involved in. But anyway, and it's a bit of a bittersweet story. But Martin Carr, he turns in a version of Staying Alive. I asked him which one he wanted to do. He wanted to Staying Alive, and he turned in a version that as a demo that I loved. And then a hard drive crashed. And he lost that. And rather than recreate the whole song, he did a new version, which was a little more out there. He changed lyrics in the song. If you've listened to it, you'll know he changed the lyrics, and that's kind of something that it creates its own problems because you have to get that cleared by the publisher. And
Oh,
if you change anything about a song's composition in terms of its lyrics, the publisher has to know about it and they have to be aware of it and they have to sign off on it. Almost all of them do, but some of them don't. And anyway, his version was kind of darker and really, really just crazy, and I loved it. But it was like, if this is the only thing you have to shop around to people to show that got a really cool project, you're not necessarily going to get as much attention or as many positive reactions as you would want. So that's when I figured out a way to reach out to Isobel Campbell, who I'm a big fan of from Belle and Sebastian's days and through her solo career. She has not made a bad record. In fact, her new record is just, it's one of the best records of last year. And she was super sweet. I knew somebody who knew somebody, got her phone number, called her up, talked to her for an hour, and she said yes. I'm nobody, no record company, no nothing.
wow.
And so, her version of How Deep Is Your Love really is the thing that got the project, full head of steam. So that's how the project began. And then it just got more and more complicated as I just kept throwing more and more ideas into this one simple little thing. Why couldn't I just record 10 songs, put it out in a simple package, and move on, with the rest of my life?
Yeah.
No, I had to put every kind of weird idea I've ever had in marketing, or things I've liked about other projects, and try to make this all of those things at once. So,
Well, let me ask you about whenever you collected the album or started assembling this team of people who were going to contribute.
mhm.
How did you decide on what songs would be made and who would be the artist, or did the artist pick, or did you pick? How did that process go?
It was very organic. Some artists knew exactly what they wanted to do. Others were super open to my input, and it really worked well. There was only one instance where there was an artist I wanted to be part of this project who wanted to do the same song that somebody else had already done, and that was the Isobel Campbell version of "How Deep Is Your Love." I had known it very, very, very slightly. One of the members of the Dream Academy. And I don't know if you know the Dream Academy. They had a huge hit they had a bunch of huge hits, but they're basically known for a song called Life in a Northern Town. Another song is very similar to Kilburn Towers. And I figured, and they had not done anything new music for decades. And they were a three piece, and they still are. Nick was sort of the lead guitarist and singer, and the sort of the main creative force of the band. And he was the one I was in contact with, and he was into it, but he wanted to do "How Deep Is Your Love," and I said, "Oh, it's already taken." And I thought you would do a great version of Kilburn Towers, and that's the song that really I get this whole story. I'm trading emails with him. I did talk to him on the phone once as well, and he just kind of disappeared on me when I said, he couldn't do that song, and I was like, what are you going to do? And so there were artists who wanted to do specific songs. And because the Bee Gees have a lot of songs, it was relatively easy to, you know, say, yeah, that one, do that one. I love that. That's a great idea. And then there were artists who were like, yeah, I want to be involved. What are you thinking? Or there were artists who had like a couple of songs they wanted to do and asked me to choose. And and so it really worked out organically, except for that one instance of overlap. There was never an issue, and I really wanted there to be a wide variety of songs from as many different periods as I could, and we ended up really covering like 3 or 4 periods, depending on how you look at it, of the Bee Gees' creative life. And that was to me super important because a lot of people
Yeah.
just know the 70s, don't really care about the 60s, don't know about the 80s, 90s, and or like the 70s when they had reached their 60s peak, and they were kind of there was this period where they were putting out a lot of records, but they weren't as popular before they discovered their soulful disco, falsetto voiced
Right.
Barry second peak. And that's to me an era that I love. There's all sorts of great albums and songs from that period. I wanted that to be represented. I even really love the record that is just Morris and Barry.
Cucumber Castle.
That's a great, great record.
Yeah.
It's very weird. There's no hits off of it. I mean, the song, the most well-known song on that album, "I.O. I.O." is probably more well-known for covers of it that were done in the UK than the actual original recording. Uh, anyway, I wanted as many of their peaks and valleys to be known, and I think we did a pretty good job of that. I would love to have been more diverse, but there's only so many songs you can put on
Right.
a single disc.
Well,
In this case, 2 discs.
yeah, I mean, you do have every Christian Lionheart Man will show you,
Yep.
Living Together, which is so ridiculously fun on this album, by a band called Kinky,
Yep.
Cucumber Castle, Tell Me Why, Blue Island, I Can Bring Love. A lot of those you don't see on cover albums and tribute albums. So then at the end of the album, you have a hidden track,
Yeah.
and it's one of those things where like not too many people, if you didn't have CDs, or if you didn't have cassette tapes or something like that, you might not know that sometimes an album would have a full couple minutes worth of silence, and then another bonus track will start. I think
Mhm.
I know Alanis Morissette did that.
Many artists did it
People
in the golden age
like,
of CDs. Yeah.
yeah. So you did that, but instead of it being a song, it's a lot of people professing their love for the Bee Gees. Tell me about that track, please.
That's probably like the heart of the project, even though it's at the tail end. As a marketing person, I'm always thinking about how to involve the audience. One of the things I decided to do was there are a couple of things I decided to do. One was I let the audience pick the song that would be done by the last artist on the album. And I just for like a week, people would say, "Oh, this is the song that's got to be on there," and that was the Gloom Balloon, where this indie band that I just sort of randomly found. They kind of reached out and said, "Oh, we love the Bee Gees, love to be part of this," and they were the band, and they said, "Sure, whatever the audience chooses, we'll do." And Words was the choice, and it was by far the choice. I think
Oh,
we had maybe a couple hundred people put in their votes, and there was a lot of different songs that were part of that voting process. But Words was way, way, way beyond it. I would never have thought that that would have been the song that would have been chosen.
yeah,
That surprised me a little bit. I mean, it's a very famous song by theirs, but I would never have thought, okay, this is going to be the one that's going to, be really mean so much to so many people that they wanted to be part of the project. So
right.
that was the first thing I did, and then I thought, oh man, these people are their love of the Bee Gees is so crazy. People write these posts on various not crazy, I mean in a really good way. They would they have an emotional attachment to all four of the Gibb brothers. So I wanted to make that part of the project in some way. So I just put it out on Facebook. I said, use your mobile phones, use your iPhones, whatever you have, and record something. You can say whatever you want, but just make it some sort of encapsulation of why you or how you or an expression of your love for the Bee Gees. And then I took all of that material, went to Gloom Balloon, who had said, "Oh, they've got this piece of music, this instrumental piece. We'll just give you." And they then, the members of Gloom Balloon, actually went in and took the audio that I gave them, and then recorded it onto their piece of music, and we put that on as the bonus track. And it turned out so beautifully. When the woman
Yeah.
starts to sing at one point, it's just like it's heart affirming and heartbreaking at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I heard that, that was when I was like just taken aback at how much passion and how much attention and how much love went into this. And um, I mentioned before, bought this CD back in 2019, so I have had it, and not and I don't want to blow smoke and have you thinking that I'm just saying nice things because you're on my show, but here is a screenshot of the review that I left you on Amazon.
Yeah, there's some really nice
Uh,
ones. Yeah, there's a couple of bad ones as well, but there's some really nice
yes,
reviews on there.
yeah, on January 9th in 2020, I gave you a 5-star review on Amazon, and I said, great interpretations of BG classics. For fans who like covers that are carbon copies of the originals, you probably not going to like this collection, but if you enjoy hearing Gibbs songs reinterpreted and performed by incredibly talented artists from all walks of life and genres, then you will appreciate this fantastic tribute. The bonus disc is great. The last hidden track is especially heartwarming. I love the Bee Gees, and I love this album.
I remember that. I
So,
remember because being an obsessive about this project, I have read all the reviews, and I remember that one. That was one of the most detailed, probably the most detailed, actually, of the reviews that have been thus far
what's
written about it.
What's funny is I went in here and was looking for it so I could screenshot it and let you know that I didn't just get this now,
Right, right.
and I found what one of my friends who I met through a Bee Gees group. He also left a very long, detailed review as well, and I'm like, hey, Marty likes this album too. All
Yeah.
right, cool.
And that's what I
So
kind of wanted to do. I wanted to get into that continuum of fandom for the Bee Gees, and I it was really motivated by a feeling that I've had as long as I've liked the Bee Gees, that they've gotten a raw deal as a legendary band, despite the fact that they've sold all the records you can sell and written and won just about every award that you can win. They
yeah,
still don't, because of the most successful part of their career, they are looked down upon, and that's sort of mind blowing when you think about it. A band's biggest success, becomes to a certain segment of the world, a lot of critics, for instance, to be
yeah,
their, the millstone around their neck. And that's so there's just no other band that I can think of, or artist, whose career pinnacle actually became the thing for which they were derided and has sort of taken away from their status. as a result. I
Yeah.
thought that's just so wrong.
And I think that's also too part of why the fans who love them and defend them so much are extra passionate
Mm.
because of that backlash. I think that ownership that some of us take is steeped in to that backlash and that defending. And I'm glad that it's starting to turn around again. I was uh, there for it in the late 90s when
Hmm.
they got into the Hall of Fame and all that stuff and
Yeah.
Stillwaters and they did night only and they were accepted again and everything was great again. And now, especially with that documentary, the HBO documentary, a
Hmm.
lot more people are discovering and seeing that, okay, this isn't a disco band, this is a pop band who at the time, has changed with the times and was the popular band in the popular genre when songs were popular. So that's also good to see. And then now, who would have guessed that in 2021 Barry would be putting out albums and getting number one albums across the world and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's
Did
a
you
good
see the
time.
video of him like accepting the #1 album award that he got in the UK, I think, and just
Yeah,
like kind of just falling apart right there, just out of love for these group of people who have continued to support him and buy his music, and he really does. The thing about Barry is, and all the members of the band, you never got the sense that these guys disregarded their fans at any level at any time. They've always,
right.
and that's just not true of even the biggest bands in the world. These guys, because I guess they grew up on an island off the coast of England, then they moved to the country that's basically closer to the South Pole than it is to anywhere else. And then they come to London and they just get swept up in the post Beatlemania world, and end up being this incredibly talented group of brothers, and and obviously the other members of the band that were so much a part of that first period. They just, how these guys all come together and make all these great songs out of nowhere. And
Yeah.
I think that that's one of the reasons why when you see Barry have that expression of emotion, it's just completely genuine. He's not faking anything. He's he is he is appreciative of every single wonderful positive thing that's happened in his world, and he wears the pain of every sorrow that he has encountered. It's just there, and he's had more than just about anybody else in his position, and I think that really informs his music, and I think that elevates him in his stature as an elder statesman, in pop music. I've told people this for many years, that who else would lose, all of their brothers, and the mother. Think about it, the mother who lost her husband, lost three of her kids, and in really sad circumstances. It's not like they all died of old age. None of them died at the time they should have died. They died before their time. To my
100%. Morris was 53. Like I remember that day so vividly. And now I think of things as I'm creeping towards 53, thinking, my God, that's not old at all. They were still in their prime. They still were,
there were many songs
had
left
so
to be
much more to
written,
give.
you know.
So many. Can you
And,
imagine? Oh, when I listen to In the Now and
mhm,
Robin's 50 Catherine Drive,
mhm.
I love those albums. I think there's some amazing songs on each of those albums, but it's always painful for me to listen to that because those two albums should be one album. Those
Yeah.
two albums should be at least albums with Barry and Robin worth of material there. Where if they would have sang together, if they would have been together, they would have been different albums, of
Yeah.
course, because Barry wrote a lot with and Robin also. They both wrote a lot with their sons on those albums.
Mhm.
But th- thinking of all that was there, that drives me crazy. I don't like playing the what ifs game because
Yeah,
that's
of
that
course.
we could be here all
But
night.
all of
Um,
that, all of those things that happened to them sort of informed why I wanted to do the project, because the Bee Gees, at the point that I put out this project, there had been really only one tribute album to them. There had been a lot of like those little knockoff, make couple bucks, like the disco Bee Gees, the
oh,
symphonic Bee Gees, or the bluegrass Bee Gees. There's endless number
yeah,
of permutations, or there were people who just, and there's some really cool ones who just put a lot of covers together and then put out a CD. And that's not really a Bee Gees cover. There was really actually, I take it back. There's two. There was one pop one that came out in the UK that had a bunch of really big, but mostly very pop artists on it. There were a couple of exceptions to that, and then there was an indie kind of new wave one that came out.
Melody Fair.
Yes, and that's a wonderful
That
record.
that is what made me think of this. Melody Fair I had for years because that came out, quite a few years ago. When I got this one, I was thinking finally something that was close to Melody Fair. I have both of those ones you mentioned, but because it has those indie songs made by indie artists
Mhm.
with originality and with their own take on songs, I don't like the carbon copy covers.
Yeah,
I mean, I like them well
they're
enough,
fine.
but I love people putting their own stamp on things, and that's what this CD is all about.
And
So
I
yeah,
like
I definitely
the breadth of that record was also, they not as far as my project went, but they were definitely not okay. We're just doing '60s songs. There were some other things on it, although it did lean heavily '60s,
it
and
did go 60.
yeah, and
I think they had a really good Kilburn Towers
yeah,
on there
yeah,
too.
they do.
Lemons Never Forget, and some of those early '60s songs that they did really. I don't know. That's a good one too. But I don't want to talk about them. I want to talk about yours.
Yeah, but anyway, that did inspire me. In that, number one, I thought it was a really great tribute album, but I also thought it was fairly limited because it was all sort of indie and rock artists, mostly edgy rock artists, and I wanted a record that was totally diverse, that was like silky pop, soul, alternative. I wanted it to go. I wanted reggae in there. I wanted everything in there, and
You wanted monks chanting.
yeah, well, that I did not expect, but I was happy to have. Um, and I wanted to have every variety on it. And what I wanted it to do is kind of flow like a radio show on an alternative slash non-commercial radio station. I for a time I've done DJing in a couple instances, but I was on a radio station in Los Angeles called KCRW for about a year and a half, and I wanted it to be like the radio shows that I heard on KCRW and loved, that ran the gamut, that's had old artists and young artists and different kinds of music that all kind of flowed together and were entertaining because of the very diversity as opposed to the conformity of them. And that really it made a big difference to me. I wanted to obviously make sure there are women on this. I wanted to make sure that I tried to have music from multiple continents. I ended up being able to get Central America, North America, Europe, but I didn't get Asia. I really wanted to. There was a couple of artists from Japan I pitched on this project that were very nice, but said that they couldn't do it for various reasons. Sometimes money was involved, sometimes it was just time, and I wanted to be globally as diverse as possible. And I didn't get as much as I wanted, but I did a pretty good job, I think.
Yeah, definitely did. And I have just a couple more questions that I want to hit
Sure.
because something I looked up or discovered while we were opening this earlier.
Mhm.
The artwork was all done by a woman, I believe. Well, you probably know the
Christine
name,
Lee.
Christine Leakey.
Yeah. A
She was,
Canadian artist and performer who's a sweetheart, and
yeah,
she came to the project. This is so much. This project took so much time and took so many permutations. She was the third artist that I went to. She came up with the concept for the cover. I came up with the text and the way I kind of I got the text from a movie poster, a current movie poster at the time that I really liked. That was kind of throwback at the time. So, okay, this is going to work together. And then I believe that she came up with the concept of making the inside of the package look like an old, a student notebook that had been drawn on, from
yeah,
back in the '70s when people were just like, everybody did Kiss, the Kiss logo, or these other things in their school notebooks that they would just like be doodling on while they're supposed to be paying attention in class. And I wanted it to have that kind of a vibe to it. And she totally killed it, in the rest of the package and the design, and just did a great job. And then she to this day is a great performer and artist, and we're in touch, and I love what she did for the project.
That's great. Last thing I wanted to touch on is the foundation to be named later.
Oh yeah.
So this CD has the profits going towards that project. Tell me a little bit about your decision to do that.
Well, part of it is that I wanted to bring in as many different concepts as possible. I wanted to have a charity aspect of it because, number one, I wanted the artists that I was going to, that I wasn't going to be paying as much money as I would have liked to have paid them, to know that part of that is because this is not a profit project. This is a charity project. And part of it is also, I'm a Boston Red Sox fan. And there's a lot of charity aspects to the Boston Red Sox. And their general manager at the time created this charity. And I said, and I was very honest with him. I said, listen, I don't expect this project to ever make a profit, but I want to give you the profits if it does. And I'm also going to give you some money now because I don't want you to do anything for nothing. And I want to contribute to your charity to show you that I mean business. They're such nice people. I would love nothing more than for this project to earn back all the money that was spent on it, so it was profitable, so I could give all of that money to the charity, because they do amazing work in both Boston and Chicago, and helping to fund higher education for kids who would not otherwise be able to go to these very expensive schools, or even modestly expensive schools, but that they can afford. And I just wanted to show that I supported that in a little way, and add something else to the project at the same time.
Well, I think that says a lot. It speaks volumes for your intentions and desire for what this project is. So it's not, like you said at the beginning, a cash grab trying to get in on the fame of a time, and it's purely for the love of the Bee Gees. And Todd, thank you so much for spending time with me today.
If I could say, finish this off. It is one of the cooler parts of the project, and it's kind of like a good kind of period at the end of the sentence of our conversation, is that we, because of our connection to Barry directly through Dick Ashby, we got him the music when it was all finished, but before the album had come out, and sent it to him. And he wrote back to me through Dick Ashby. He wrote this beautiful paragraph about the project. It's on the website, toLoveTheBeeGees.com. It's very prominent on the front page. He wrote this beautiful note, and it just made it all worthwhile. All the time I spent, 4 years working on it, all the the economic impact on my life to put it together, the ups and downs of bringing it to market, and there were many of them. Getting that response and just going, wow, he had the time to listen to this. He was on a flight to the UK. I sent him 2 CDs full of, these versions of his songs. And of course he knows these songs backwards and forwards. He doesn't need to hear anybody else doing them. But he's so happy about that, and so just respectful of the process and thankful for the interest. And I really think in some small way that led to his current album project, where he worked with a bunch of different people doing very well-known songs that haven't even been released. There are versions of on his new project, and I think that duets album, there's a sort of connection to our project, and I like to think in some tiny way in the back of Barry's mind, there's something that connected our record to his decision to make the duets album. There's almost no way that that's the case, but I like to think of that.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Todd. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so there you go. There's our episode on To Love the Bee Gees, a wonderful tribute album, a great compilation of music, lots of different styles, and something that you're going to love. So definitely add it to your collection if you don't have it already. If you want to hear more, check out our Spotify exclusive episode about To Love the Bee Gees. Head on over there. It's got some music in it, so You can only hear it on Spotify, so make sure you go and listen and subscribe to us on there. Check us out, as always, on Instagram and Twitter at BGsandMe. Find us on Facebook. You can find all the links at bgsandme.com. My name is David Fedor. I really appreciate you watching all of our episodes here on our BG's YouTube channel. Be sure to hit thumbs up and leave us comments and subscribe to our channel, because we're going to have new stuff all the time. And I really, really appreciate you being along on the ride with me, with BGs and Me. Thanks for watching.